to the third episode of Startup Guide Podcast. Today I have the very, very, very pleasure of speaking with Jaya. So I always try to kind of figure out how I have a personal connection with all the... Until now, I know all the people that we interviewed. And I actually think we wrote an article together.
That's
without
true.
Actually knowing, right?
That is true.
We wrote an article
it's still on LinkedIn, I
exactly.
think. Yeah.
About the startup ecosystem here. So
sure.
Yeah. Maybe
totally forgot about that.
Exactly. But first of all, welcome to. You are a very impressive woman. We did some research on you earlier on. You actually founded quite a lot of companies, consultancies, City Buddies, 12 Grapes, now Bunch. You lived in more than 5 different countries the last 7 years. And according to your LinkedIn, you speak 8 different languages. And then you're still quite young. Like, I can definitely say that you are under 40. Right?
Good guess.
So for me, this is like quite impressive. So what is the secret?
There is no secret, really. I think I'm just very, very curious. I think I get like bored. I used to get bored quite easily. It was one of my problems, that I'm too impatient. So but especially when I was young and kind of like got out of the university, I started to just try out things. And until I actually kind of by chance fell into the entrepreneurial thing. It wasn't really planned. So I did consulting before, and then I did research. And I did like kind of live experiments with founders, because I was studying creativity under pressure and performance under pressure in like an organizational context, and found that, of course, with founders. So it kind of just happened that I'm sticking to entrepreneurship right now, and I feel very comfortable. I think that's my kind of like my group of people and like my pool, and I feel really cool there. But aside of that, it's definitely the kind of sense of urgency of like maybe a little bit of FOMO of like missing out. Like there are so many things happening in the world I need to know, and I need to be part of it, and somehow I don't know, I get a lot of energy out of that. But I don't speak all the 8 languages, actually. I do understand them indeed, and I have spoken them at one point in my life, but I forgot like half of them. So okay, cool. Just for reference.
Cool. So recently you pivot your previous company, 12 Grapes, to now into Bunch, which have got a lot of promotion and a lot of presence in the recent press and so on. Yeah. Can you basically tell to all the people here that don't know what Bunch is yet, what it's about?
Oh God, that's the most horrible question of
all
time, because like, exactly. You have like this pressure of like, oh my God, in 3 sentences, what is this? And like, there's a big vision. So Bunch is a team success platform. Basically, we're a mix between psychology, machine learning, and data. And what we basically do is to translate organizational psychology insights into very digestible chunks of information that are customized to each and every team's dynamics, so that you guys can actually be at your best. Because there's so much knowledge out there about how people collaborate, and some of you might be familiar with some of the stuff that Google did, and like HBR articles are all about like all over the place. The problem currently is that there's a lot of psychological armies employed by corporates, and they have a lot of like really cool insights about how actually people can work together better and easier and be more impactful. But this knowledge is currently not translated into any kind of products that are accessible to the small, medium-sized businesses and high-growth businesses. So when I was founder myself and then working for startups, I often found that there was a lot of kind of uninformed decisions around how founders build people topics and culture and organizational structures, and it just like all happens, and there's all this execution and like KPIs and goals, and we need to sell and like push out the product, and you kind of forget that you're actually dealing with people's lives. So I really can relate to the WeWork mission. Like it's more than a job for all of us. So we should be actually really like much smarter about how we build those things and how we build relationships at work, because it is alive and not a living. And so that was kind of the inspiration. So right now, what it does is actually measuring a team's current culture. We collaborated with Stanford, a group of researchers. So we're utilizing validated scientific models, like psychological models. And with a quite short online assessment, we're able to like play back to you what your cultural baseline is. So not what it says on the wall or in the media or somewhere else, but what you guys feel is important for you, and what do you base actually decisions on every day. So what drives your behavior at work with your colleagues. And on top of that, we are helping teams to screen candidates based on that cultural baseline. So kind of like really help you understand who's behind that LinkedIn and that CV that you're looking at. Quite a long explanation, sorry.
That's if you really can solve this, right? then
we can.
Then it's amazing, because I think that's one of, we often ask entrepreneurs what is the biggest issues that they face growing a business, and it's basically to find the right people.
Yeah,
and find the right people that can stick with you for the long shot, and not only to fix one or two problems. So all this, let's say, like all this research, and what is it based in?
So basically, there's been like it's a very kind of like generic question. There's this huge. You have to imagine that there's this huge bubble of like insights on what does team performance depend on. So there is things like personality factors, psychological motivational factors. There is values and motives that drive people's behavior, and so on. And there is like, we as human beings, we're quite complex, and we have a lot of predictors, like factors that actually drive our behavior, and a lot of that is decoded to a certain degree. The problem the challenge comes into play when you actually shuffle different people together, because the dynamic then is driven by all these combinations. And so the model that we chose to base Bunch on, as it is currently, and why I say as it is currently, because this is not the only thing that Bunch is going to provide in terms of insights. That's just the starting point. So we'll be adding on more dimensions and more metrics. Which is why I think in one of the articles, kind of the comparison was like the Google Analytics of culture, which it really is, because in online marketing, you can't work with like one metric. You need to have like several ones depending on the question that you're trying to answer. So the same goes for culture. But to refer back to your question, what it's based on, in the end is like, in psychology, we can actually measure and decode behavior, emotion, and cognition. So like what we think, what we feel, and how we behave, to a very huge degree by now. So and that is the hidden truth, like most of human behavior is actually quite predictable. So what we're doing is basically actually picking up these insights and translating them into recommendations, real-time customized recommendation to each team that deals with a certain dynamic in a way that helps them adjust their behavior to become better. So I'm not sure whether there is like an easy answer to what it's based on, but in the end, it's based on years of research of other researchers and scientists that we're kind of like tapping our fingers into.
Yeah, it's crazy interesting to hear. Like, because I think it's like it's an area that haven't been touched that much. It's always like when you talk with HR companies, it's like, we scout, and then we have a lot of conversations with them, but I think it's basic like Tinder, right? You always lie. So it's like
I mean, actually, we had a conversation on the way here about lying and social desirability, because that is the number one question our clients ask us. Like, but if we have online assessments, don't people just like lie and pretend? Like, you'd be surprised that there's barely no evidence that people actually do lie. So the actual effect of lying in like online assessments in general is marginally like till non-existent, and that's been repeated over the years. So it's kind of like the being afraid of flying thing, where people are like still afraid, and you keep telling them like statistically like the chance that you're actually going to die in the plane is really low, but people don't want to hear it because of course that candidate is going to lie. So our usual answer to this kind of questions is, in the current assessment that we chose, it's a forced choice assessment. So the question is not like, are you good? Are you intelligent? Are you goal driven? It's more about what's important to you. And you kind of have to pick between options. So all options are good, because all of us want to be customer oriented, and all of us want to be result driven, and all of us want to be collaborative. But if it really comes down to it, like, what is more important to you? So for me, I think it's adaptability and customer orientation. Result orientation, for some people on my team, it's like slightly different kind of like dimensions, but we all have adaptability and collaboration in common. So the point of Bunch is actually help every team and company understand what is the one thing that they rally around. So what is the thing that in the end, if you're all coming together from different places and you approach problems differently, what's not compromisable? So like, what do you all have to agree with? And I think Brian Chesky from Airbnb once made that statement of like, at Airbnb, we really like take care that we actually hire very diverse workforce. So we need to be diverse in everything that we look at, and we can't exclude anyone, with one exception, which is you can be diverse on the beliefs that you share with the people you work with. Like you have to have that common denominator. And what we're basically doing is measuring that denominator, playing it back and asking you the question, like, is that the one that you plan to have? Or maybe like, is this the strategically important factor that you want to rally your workforce around and the company around?
I just got to think about a question, which is not on here. But
oh my gosh.
Sometimes improvise.
Right.
But
that makes us equal, because now you're really prepared and I'm not, and I'm like super nervous.
So let me see if this question goes good.
Okay.
But while you were talking, I started thinking about a thing. We have a book in here called Why You Will Marry the Wrong One.
Yeah.
And it's basically about, you know, the author setting up lots of different reasons why the culture, especially the Western culture, have set up this romantic idealism of, you know,
Princess
what your partner should be, right? And that we basically don't know what is best for us.
Yeah.
It's a little bit the same when it comes to actually setting the right team, that the leaders and the CEOs actually think that, you know, we want this kind of person.
Yeah.
And then the end of the day,
it's not what your team needs.
Exactly.
Oh God, like, thank you so much for bringing this. And this is like,
you can buy the book afterwards.
Right. This is like the aha moment that is, I think, causing people to actually sign a yearly contract. So like currently we're only selling yearly contracts, which is like super mind blowing, because we were started with like monthly rates in like 6 months, and we went away from it because it's kind of like all like buy in or not. If you kind of buy into the idea that you need to track that stuff and you need to actually make informed decisions if you want to manage this as a team, you kind of like just kind of sign up for it. And the reason why most of them do it is because exactly that effect. So we usually get to talk to founders or other C-level members, and then they're like, we need to hire a lot of people. How do we make sure we don't hire the wrong ones? Or we've grown so fast, we have lost track on like, what is it that we're standing for and who did we become in these last months? It's been so crazy, we're only executing. And then when we actually do the onboarding assessment, so when you onboard Bunch, you get like a first kind of cultural baseline assessment, and we play that information back. It's kind of like magical moment of, oh my God, I have known we are like this, but I have never seen that actually these and these things are important. And when they go back to their teams and actually speak about it, like so much stuff comes out that has been sitting there under the table for a long time, and you actually have like real conversations about, yes man, like collaboration is really important for us. This is why we take sometimes longer to make decisions, because we're consensus driven and you want us to be result oriented, and we understand, but you have hired people that are like super collaborative, so now what to do? And usually the solution, or kind of like the way it takes there, is to create a common understanding of how much more result driven do we need to be. What does that mean in our context? What exact behaviors do we need to change? And by going through this process as a conversation and as like a common understanding of this is how we are and this is where we want to go, you create a lot of engagement and commitment that you actually otherwise lose out. So it's kind of, we also thought that it would be more about, we kind of tell you what you need and who you are, but we noticed that the magical moments happen around the kind of like people grabbing these insights and then talking about them and actually make decisions together as a team, and that kind of sets for a lot of potential that we have not seen otherwise.
I will take a little step back, so I'll not talk that much about Bunch right now, but basically maybe talk more about you. So you're definitely a woman who knows a lot of things. You are a consultant and you are a mentor at Startup Bootcamp, you're a moderator, you're a coach, you're a PhD candidate at university. How do you manage all these things at once? You know, I'm a founder of a company, and I basically spend, you know, all my awake hours on that. But there's quite a lot of other things here.
So do I. Currently, I think so. So it's a bit tricky because I'm not sure. Like, I need to update that information, I think. So I have done a lot of research in the past years. I have paused my PhD officially. So like, I don't know when I'm going to get back to it. I've spent like about 3.5 years in full-time research, and I've published some stuff, and I do still have some data that I need to publish, but like, it's definitely not happening now. And I think we all are aware of the fact that startups are eating your life, and that's it. I do awarenessly make time for mentoring, and I do awarenessly make time for friends and family sometimes. Like, it's very limited, but more precious, even so more precious. I don't know. I mean, in my first startup, I think I was working probably more than 80 hours a week on it, like maybe more like 90 and like barely sleeping, because I was also still doing the PhD. Exactly. So if you try to do both things, I don't think you can kind of like give your heart to two really huge things. Like you can only give it to one. However, I have become much more aware in this round of startupping that it's not about managing time, it's about managing energy, right? So if you feel that you're drained and kind of like the red, so I have like this imagination of like red and blue fluids, and like there's a lot of red fluids and you're about to explode and like your head burns and you have like a meltdown in the brain. We all probably know how that feels. So that's definitely the moment in time of like actually stopping to work on your baby, because it probably will hurt people you work with and your clients and your product. And so maybe it's time to actually fill up the blue thing again, and then I start to mix things into it. So I think I don't see those other things as something that drains energy, but actually where I get energy back.
Yeah, that would be my second question. How do you fill up the blue bottle?
Yeah, I'm an extrovert, so I like to be with some people. With most of the people, the ones that I feel energized after. I actually get a lot of satisfaction out of like just getting to know entrepreneurs, makers, and creators, like an artist. And I really like, if I have a long day and I get out from the office at 10 p.m. and then I get to like talk to one of my teammates on the way home, like it really makes me feel happy, and like I feel like I've filled up a little bit of the blue. But I also I do meditate, and I do try to run, not as much lately, but usually I was like last year actually run like half marathon and stuff. So like I kept myself on schedule. Yeah. It's I don't know, always scheduling and like doing it.
The balance.
Which never happens.
But so we just spoke briefly before we went on stage about
and I do surf. Oh my god, I forgot that.
You surf as well?
I do. But like I didn't do that for a couple of years, and then I got really unhappy, and now I make sure that I surf 2 times a year.
Well, then you should come with us to Lisbon.
I know. I will definitely use it to you guys.
We just talked briefly about before we went on stage about how I said that how you suddenly came into this area of like human resource and people and processes and so on, because you come from a very academic background somehow. Like how do you think that this specific area or this topic is that grasping your heart somehow, or
It's a, like, for me, difficult question to answer, because I never had kind of like an area before. So my first startup was in travel tech. So it was like a marketplace connecting travelers with social graph, Facebook graph based recommendations. So it was kind of like a Get Your Guide mix in Latin America. And I think I was always trying to find that common denominator of all the things I've done, which was really hard because I tried around a lot, which is why I have so many things on LinkedIn, but like it doesn't really mean anything else than just trying around. And the one common denominator was always that I really felt satisfied helping others grow. The problem is, and that's why I actually built the consultancy business, because I've seen exactly this problem with like founders being very focused on numbers and kind of like forgetting the people numbers aspect. Like, you also need to manage people. You don't actually just like employ them, give them contracts, and then make them work. And so I started to help founders to solve that problem, which didn't really work out that well, because as a consultant, you're very limited. You can only sell an amount of hours. So I felt like I actually probably have more impact and potential to kind of like feed into the system, but I can't do that as a consultant because I always keep standing in workshops, and that's like super dumb at one point. And like, it helps, but it's not the most valuable or effective thing to do. Mm-hmm. So that is when it actually kind of all started to fall into place, because with current state of data processing power and the fact that we actually can drive analytics on the fly and we can play them back anywhere in the world, and there's like no breakdowns ever. I mean, like ever, like most websites are live all the time, and that we can actually analyze Slack communication and like Trello workflow sets and actually see behavioral patterns of people and kind of like can see what they need when they work and what their productive patterns are like that you actually have all that stuff available in like open APIs. Like this is crazy, and that this is kind of my chance to actually scale that same effect that I had when I was coaching founders or teams. So it's, for me, it's a very logical thing, but I also don't consider it HR tech. I don't know, like HR tech has a very bad connotation to it. It's like all the bad tools that have human tech, psychology tech. I'm kind of hoping that this term still will coin. Like I think psychology tech makes much more sense.
So you said it actually now, and I just want to. You have once said that that there is one way to gain trust is to show your weaknesses and make fool of yourself.
Why did I say that?
You don't remember this?
No, I mean I stand by it, but I don't remember where I said it.
Okay. So you clearly don't remember the same night as I do. No, but how do you see yourself as a leader? Is that a person who?
Oh God.
Who's, because I guess like parts of building a platform of this comes very much into, how you think leadership should look like, and there's many different opinions of that. If you go, if you're in the Western countries, or if you're in the Eastern countries, or even if you are in the older generation, younger generation, how do you see yourself as a leader, and how would you like to be as a leader?
Yeah. It's a very interesting question that actually has been moving me like in the past couple of days and weeks most. We actually had a kind of very open and deep conversation with the whole team just yesterday on the topic. Because I don't think leadership is something that only I am responsible for, but actually that's something that we all need to do in the team that is building something from scratch. So I think where I came from originally was like participative and supportive leadership. So I am like the girl that, like goes around and like does the heavy lifting, like tries to help everyone, constantly offers help, and correct me if I'm wrong, because she's actually my team member. So, and I'm trying to be everywhere and like be all available and kind of nurture everyone. And like, that's the whole growth thing. Like I get you on board and I'm so happy you work with me and I give you everything you need. And like, I'm trying to like lift you up all the time. The problem with that is, so I kind of learned the other side of that approach, because when you grow to a certain size, and like now we're 8, again, we're like 10 in between with a couple freelancers, and it kind of like doesn't scale as much, and also has this effect of people kind of start to rely on you more and kind of like, don't have enough space to actually like step up to be a leader themselves and to step up towards their own team members and to kind of like do the same thing for them as you do for the whole team. So my current thing is actually like my current development area is to actually kind of draw back and let people do their thing. Like we all work in teams where like only super smart, educated people work usually, like it's all knowledge work. So they can't all solve these problems. And actually, I think that in the future, leadership is not something that you have as a founder. Of course, you start and then you kind of like have to provide that. But the healthiest organizations take leadership and share it, and actually can do it so dynamically that no matter whom you put into that function in a random day on a project should be able to do well. And that's one of the ideas behind Bunch as well, that in order to do that, you need to have a deep level understanding of psychology and how people work and how collaboration works. So by providing these insights, we actually would empower more self-led teams and help distribute leadership across different members. So I'm not sure
sounds very romantic.
My mission like is really to kind of like become the best leader, but actually to become the leader that empowers leaders the best way.
But don't you think that things would fall down if you suddenly have like 20 leaders sitting around the table and all want to kind of lead the same direction? Isn't that like the basically the sense of a leader is to like show the way when people are fighting about which way to go?
Yeah, that's decision making, right? I don't think so, because for me, leadership doesn't mean that you don't execute. Like if you actually imagine this group of people that wanders around, like I always take Lord of the Rings kind of example. I mean, like they all need to walk, and they all need to do their stuff. Like, so whether you're the one showing the way and proposing an idea and direction and people follow you or not, like you still need to do heavy lifting. So like, I think it doesn't necessarily contradict each other. However, I think decision making as a power and kind of like follow through with execution is exactly that thing that you would want from everyone on the team, no? Like you would want to step out of the room and then someone else come in and say like, no, it's a problem. I could interview Darja if like everything falls down and you work repeat or whatever. So it's lovely. I know, right? Just like multiply and clone yourself.
But then why is it that that one of the biggest issues there is sometimes these power struggles within teams, because leadership normally comes with some kind of a power.
Yeah.
And again, if there's too many leaders, then they can become this power struggles, because in the end of the day, how would you describe that?
But I think now I understand what the it took me a little bit. So I think leadership is not something that you own forever, and like you are a leader or you're not, right? Like in this current situation, in this challenge, you can lead, and then you propose a specific direction and help people buy into that direction, or challenge you, make a decision together, go execute. In another situation, you'd not want to be the leader, you'd need to be the follower probably, because if we don't actually kind of like have this dynamic of like, you lead, I follow, I lead, you follow, like if we are as a team not able to perform that, then we don't function in the first place. So we actually need to both be able to follow and lead. And in order to do so, we need so many things. We need to actually trust and admire people we work with. If we don't admire them, we are not gonna do shit following them, because we're like, whatever you say, like I don't. So who do you get on the team, and do you actually really trust them? The second thing is to actually like kind of go over your ego, and the power struggles come from a point where you actually have an unresolved conflict. You actually didn't have a conversation you need to have, and there is different ways how you can go about it, depends on the conflict, but most of the time it's actually unclarity about who owns what. Like, do you own these decisions and I own those? But like, it cannot be that you own all decisions, because otherwise then you don't need to hire me, smart, ambitious, motivated person. If I can't make any decisions, then you can take somebody less educated and he executes.
So I think your style of leadership, as a leader, or how Bunch see it as well, how does that function with the older generation and the way they see organization structures and like the whole motivating power of promotions and
self-empowerment.
Exactly.
So what I was talking about right now is like how we operate and how we build our team and like how we grow, right? This is not what Bunch does. No. So the Bunch approach is to say there is not one right culture. So I don't agree that we all have to be agile and like we all have to work with supportive leadership and everybody has to be the same. That's actually the opposite of what the research shows that we are basing the current product on, and that also our cooperation partners from Stanford actually find. Like the actual beauty about the model that we're using is that they have found that it's totally not important whether you are a collaborative organization and you like brainstorm all day long and every decision is being made by everyone, or if you're a really result-driven organization where you probably have much stricter decision-making patterns, so you can actually get to results very quickly and you're all very kind of like focused on executing towards those results, or whether you are like a very detail-driven organization where you're like super acribic about holding your quality standards and you are not caring about how you get there, but like you can't ever do anything wrong. But that it actually matters that all people you have on board do agree that this is important. So their bottom line is that whether you are a McKinsey where you're super detailed and super result driven, or you're an IDEO where you're super collaborative and very like customer oriented, both things can be very successful financially as much as otherwise if you're just very honest about it and you express this very clearly and everyone who comes on board agrees on that. The problem becomes, or like most unhealthy organizations have the issue that they have subcultures and they're pulling in different direction. Yeah. And that's when they're starting to lose. So I am not sure whether ours is the right one. Probably for us it's good because I'm only getting people on board that kind of like agree with this and want to live this. But for you might be the result-driven way. I don't know.
I don't think so. The fun way. Right, guys? No, but it's, I think, we don't have that much time left, but I think, what you're on the mission to do is one of the most important things. Like, some years ago, there was this study done from Design Thinking School in Potsdam that on the top 3 of the reasons why companies actually fail within 3 years, it's actually, internal fights.
Yeah.
It's people that have started companies together that kind of agree on which direction to go, which people to get on board, So I think what you're doing is amazing. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. By the
sure.
way, I didn't.
If we could continue this conversation forever, I feel like
we can continue at night.
Exactly. Should we live stream it?
It's your company.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all for coming. Very nice.